Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Jennings Couch here at Holywell Studio in London, and today I'm going to be showing you my top 5 favorite Soundtoys plugins. Let's get straight into it. So we're going to start things off with the Phase Mistress. I've got this little track going, just a really rough idea. Have a listen. Really simple, some nice chords, a nice little drum beat. I'm going to stick a Phase Mistress on the keys, on that pad sound. So I've got all my Soundtoys plugins in one place here. So without even adjusting the settings, let's see what it sounds like. Okay, way too phasey for me. I want a little bit of phase, but not that much. So I'm going to turn the modulation down. I'm also going to turn the resonance down because I don't want it to sound too bright. I'm going to leave the frequency where it is. Let's have a listen to that. Okay, not bad. I'm also going to turn the mix wet knob down to probably about halfway. Let's try that. Ooh, that's quite nice. And without? Okay, I'm going to turn that wet knob up a tiny bit more. Let's try now. Cool, I'm happy with that. It's just a tiny bit of phase. It makes a little bit of interest in the keys sound. I don't want to go too crazy, but just a tiny bit is nice. Awesome. So now I'm going to bring up the Decapitator, but before I do that, I need to record a bass part. So I'm just going to put a quick bass part over the track. Nothing special. I'm definitely not a bass player, but just something a little bit groovy to go with the drums. Here we go. Awesome. So now that I've got that little bass part recorded, let's stick the Decapitator on it and see what it does. Here's the bass part as it came out of the bass. Cool. Not too bad. I've got the Decapitator ready right here. This is what it looks like. Pretty simple. You've got your drive knob, you've got your output knob. They're sort of linked so that when you bump the drive, it bumps down the output, because otherwise you're going to fucking blow your speakers off. You've got your low cut knob, which is very useful, your tone, dark and bright, and your high cut, and then obviously the mix. There's a really nice little button called Punish. It literally does that. It punishes the signal that's coming into it. I never really use that. It's too much. I'll show you what it sounds like in a minute. But here is the Decapitator on the bass with just a tiny bit of distortion. Nice. It's a nice warm sound. You can see the gauge going up and down a little bit there, so it's getting a tiny bit of signal, well, not much. I'm going to bump up the drive as it's playing so you can hear what it's doing. So as you can see, it gets very fuzzy, very dirty sounding, which I love. That's obviously too much, but I love that sound. It's great. So I'm probably going to keep it around 5 or 6. Nope, that's too much, but maybe 4 or 5. Yeah, that sounds great. You're probably wondering what the Punish button does, and I'll show you what it does. Here you go. It just absolutely makes it filthy. Yeah, I never use the Punish button. It's just fun to do sometimes. I'm going to turn the tone down to dark a tiny bit more, and probably leave it at that, actually. Let me hear it one more time. And to compare without. Great, that made such a difference. I love that. Okay, awesome. So that's the bass part in, with a bit of distortion on it from the Decapitator. But it's lost a little bit of its top end, a little bit of its edge, of its punch. So a little trick that I'm going to use to get the edge and the punch back from the bass is I'm literally going to double the bass track, and I'm going to call one bass low, and I'm going to call the other one bass high. And when I say low and high, I'm talking about frequency. So I've got the bass low. I'm literally going to copy that audio into the bass high track. And then on the bass low track, before the Decapitator, I'm going to put an EQ, and I'm going to cut a lot of the top end. So I'm going to solo that bass, and let's have a listen to it as I cut the top end. So that's what that sounds like. On the bass high, I'm going to do the exact opposite. I'm going to cut the low end just so we get the high, mid to high frequencies. Yeah, that sounds cool. And the bass together. Yeah, that's nice. And the last thing I'm going to do on the bass high is I'm going to put a sample delay and widen it a tiny bit. Not a lot, but just a little bit. Oh yeah, let's try that in the track. Awesome. Nice little bass trick. You know, if you're going to put distortion on the bass or you're going to process it, you might lose some of that mid or top end. Just double the track, cut the high from one of the tracks, cut the low from the other one. Otherwise, you're going to get clashing and phasing and all this kind of stuff. So as long as they're not in the same frequencies, then you should be all right. So for the next Soundtoys plugin, I'm going to be recording some guitar. Let's get to it. Wicked. Alright guys, cool. So we just recorded that little guitar part. I've colored it yellow as you can see. This is the dry sound. Cool, yeah, so it's a nice little lick. Sounds a bit crap, so let's see if we can make that a little better. First things first, let's start with the Soundtoys plugin. So, Devil Loc. The Devil Loc is another sort of distortion / compression plugin that just gives you a real nice gritty sound. As you can see here, audio level destroyer. I mean, it just kind of really crunches the signal, and it's a nice texture, so why not use it? This is Loc Deluxe. They also do a smaller version, which I think is just called Devil Loc, yep, and it's slightly smaller, only 2 knobs instead of 4. Does a similar thing. So, anyway. Let's stick this on the guitar and see what it sounds like. So here's before the Devil Loc. And with the Devil Loc. So it just gave a nice little bit of grit. Let's mess around with these knobs a little bit and I'll show you what they do. So crush is going to be a bit like a compressor. The quiet parts are going to be boosted and the loud parts are going to be crushed down. You'll hear what this sounds like. So you hear how it just, those quiet parts in between where I'm like moving my fingers and stuff, it just boosts those right up and it's pretty horrible really. Obviously if I was doing this track properly, I would clean up that guitar so we don't have those silences with the slidey sounds and all that. Crunch is going to be a bit more like your distortion, so let's try that. So, like the Decapitator with the drive knob, you can hear that the crunch knob on Devil Loc is just adding more filth, more grit. So again, I just want a little bit of that, not too much. Yeah, somewhere around there is nice. And then the last 2 knobs we have here are darkness and mix. So mix is obviously how much of the original signal you want to come through the plugin. The darkness I'm going to turn up a little bit as well. Yeah, that's nice. So the darkness knob is essentially a tone knob. It's going to be brighter or darker depending on which way you move it. Let's hear this guitar in the track. Cool, so that sounds okay. I'm going to stick on this EQ, which I just cut some of the low end and some of the high end. I've put on a reverb plugin, and I've put on a sample delay. So we're going to have some reverb, and the guitar is going to go from mono to stereo in your headphones. Let's see how that sounds. Nice, I like that. So that was Devil Loc. Alright guys, now it's time to talk about the PanMan plugin from Soundtoys. And for that, I'm going to record a little keyboard thing. Cool, so just a simple little lick. So I'm just going to quickly quantize that by highlighting all the MIDI notes, pressing Q. That quantizes them, and then I'm going to also make the velocities the same by switching my alternative tool to velocity, and you get to the alternative tool by holding Command. I'm on a Mac, by the way. And by holding Command, Option, and Shift, you can click and raise the velocity on every single note that is highlighted. So that's a nice little tip. Let's hear that in the mix with no PanMan, just as it is. Now, I've got the PanMan here ready. So the PanMan is kind of as it says, it pans. It does it in different ways. So you can have like ping pong pan, or you can choose which side you want to pan to, the width, how quickly, do you want it to tap to the tempo, or do you want it to be random? So it's got a lot of tools kind of built into it, and it's really fun. Let's hear how this sounds. As you can see, I've got it set to a 16th notes rhythm, and that's at 130 BPM, which is the BPM of my track. So the plugin automatically knows your BPM. So as you can see, this is starting in the center, and it's bouncing left, right, left, right. So it's panning back and forth. It's almost like a little bit like a stereo delay or ping pong delay. And we have some options here. So the feel, rushed or dragged. Do you want it to feel like it's pushing quicker than your BPM, or do you want it to feel like it's lagging behind a little bit? I kind of want to feel like it's dragging a tiny bit. If I stick the click on and play it with that, that's cool. Yeah, it's just kind of sitting back a tiny bit more. It's not like super energetic or super hype. You have your offset, so do you want it to focus more on the left side of the speaker or the right side? I'm going to keep that in the middle because I like that ping pong effect. I don't want to favor either side. Your width, so this is going to be your stereo width. Do you want it to sound more mono? As you can see, when I turn that down, this stays in the center. Or do you want it to sound as stereo as possible? So I'm going for as stereo as possible. And the smoothing, so this is the transition between left to right, left to right, left to right. I'm going to turn that all the way down to hard, and as you can see, that's just blinking now. There's no sort of smooth transition of lights. So this is going to sound probably pretty choppy. Let's hear it. Yeah, so that's very choppy. Pretty cool, actually. I'm going to ride this smoothing knob up as I play it so you can hear what it does. So with the smoothing knob up all the way, it's just kind of more gliding between left and right, left and right. And I actually prefer that for this track. So I'm going to leave it like that. So this section of the plugin here is where you choose your rhythms, what you want. So do you want it like a ping pong delay? Do you want it to be absolutely random? It'll go by step, by your rhythm. I'm doing a rhythm step right now, so it's matching to my tempo. You can do it by LFO, which is just choosing frequencies. So there's a lot of options in here, but I'm going to keep it on rhythm step because I like that it's tapping to my tempo and giving me a ping pong effect. So that's the PanMan. Let's hear it in the track. That's really cool. I like that a lot. That really works. By the way, guys, if you haven't noticed, I'm wearing this super cool jumper. So this is my own design for one of my songs. This is the artwork for a song called Chemical Roulette. And if you want one of these really cool jumpers, I'm going to stick the link right up here. Click that. It'll take you to my website where you can buy one. Alright guys, it's time to talk about the final Soundtoys plugin in my top 5 favorite Soundtoys plugins. That was a long way of saying that. Anyway, the final plugin that I'm going to show you today is Little Altar Boy. And this is my absolute favorite plugin out of all the Soundtoys, Waves, Native Instruments. This is my absolute favorite plugin, and I'm going to show you why. I'm going to do a vocal thing over top. I'm just going to go like, ah, ah. Let's record that, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do with it. So before I put the Soundtoys plugin on this, I'm actually going to tune it quickly with Melodyne. So I'm going to speed that up so you don't have to watch me go through that. Alright guys, cool. So I've just tuned that little vocal thing that I did, and I've put a compressor on it so it's a bit louder. And now I'm going to show you my favorite plugin in the world, the Little Altar Boy by Soundtoys. Here we go, Little Altar Boy. So it's basically a pitch and formant plugin. It's absolutely incredible. So I'm going to solo the vocal thing that I just did so we can play around with this. Cool, so as you can see, I've heavily tuned it. So anyway, let's have a play around with this. So pitch, first of all. I'm going to play the vocal thing and move the pitch knob and see what happens. So that's just pitch, literally. Unless you want to detune something, I always go at least -12 down an octave or +12 up an octave. I think I'm going to keep it up an octave, actually. Or actually, I might keep it in the middle and show you the formant knob. This is my favorite knob. My favorite knob. Wow, I never thought I'd say that. Anyway, formant. Here we go. So that's a really interesting sound, going up and down in formant. What formant is, it's really actually the throat length. So it's like singers with your vocal cords and stuff. When you elongate your vocal cords, if I'm going la, and I go la, right? It's the same notes, but I'm getting a different sound because I'm elongating my vocal cords. I'm dropping my larynx. If I'm going the other way, if I'm going up in formant, I'm heightening my larynx. La, right? That sounds really annoying, I know, but that's essentially what formant is. It's the throat length, which is super cool to mess around with. We've also got a drive knob here. So drive, as you know, is kind of like distortion. Let's try that. So again, very fuzzy, very dirty. I'm not going to use that. I've got enough grit going on in the song right now. So let's have a play around. I'm going to go all the way up an octave and down in formant. And let's see what that sounds like. That's really cool. I want to hear that in the track. Wow, that's awesome. You can link these two so that they move together, but I prefer the sound when they're independent. I'm not going to touch the drive, and I'm going to keep the wet all the way up because I want the entire signal to be affected by the plugin. So, to make this sound even cooler, I'm going to stick it through a reverb. Wow, that's so nice. And now that the track's in stereo, I can go to sample delay and make it wide. Well, I was about to say I like it wide, and that just sounded so wrong in my head, but yeah, that's awesome. There's quite a bit of low end coming out of that vocal, and I realized I haven't EQ'd it yet, so I'm just going to EQ this quickly. So just to show you where that vocal started, this is what it sounded like raw when I recorded it. I mean, what a difference. EQ, little alter boy, reverb, and sample delay, and you get this. And of course, the majority of that is coming from the little alter boy. That's what's giving us that sound, which I think is just, you can do such unique things with that, which is why it is my absolute favorite Soundtoys plugin. Let's hear it in the track. Wow, I'm loving that. I'm really, really loving that. That's actually a track I might carry on working on. Usually when I do these videos, I make a little track and then I forget about it, but this is actually pretty cool. Guys, that was it. That was my top 5 absolute favorite Soundtoys plugins. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It was an absolute pleasure showing you these Soundtoys plugins and making this pretty cool track for you guys. Really enjoyed that. So guys, if you want to see any other videos on any other plugins, or if you want to know more about Logic, how to do certain things, anything like that, leave it in the comments. I'll be sure to get back to you, and I'll see you for the next video. Cheers, guys.